Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on data skills, how to get the competitive advantage to help land your next role. I'm hoping that people can see my shared screen, and if someone can give me a thumbs up, that would be great. Wonderful. Fantastic. Well, I can see that we've already got well over 100 people that have joined today's webinar, which lunchtime on a Wednesday, Thursday, or wherever you are in the world. Thank you very much for making the time and making the commitment. We've got an incredible panel with us today that we're going to get into some really interesting topics, and there's going to be a number of great learnings. First of all, once again, I have to apologise for the horrendously out-of-date photo, and I'll promise the team that we'll get an updated photo before we do the next of these. But I am Jack, CEO at 4thRev, based here in London, one of the co-CEOs and co-founders, business with a team around the world, but predominantly based in London, Australia, and South Africa. And we work with universities and industry, focused on our mission of unlocking human potential through reimagined education. And that's all about developing the holistic skills, capabilities, and experience in partnership with world-leading universities and the leading technology companies to help people land jobs in high-growth roles. And so this webinar brought to you by 4thRev and the London School of Economics, one of our absolutely critical partners, where we collaborate with them really strongly in the data analytics space, and some additional programs to come as well. But of course, this program focused on data analytics, where we've been working with them and the likes of leading technology companies such as Tableau, GitHub, and other industry partners such as Robert Walters, represented here today. And we offer our 6-month online career accelerator programs, which lead people directly into high growth roles in data analytics or leveraging their data analytics skills. And we'll get into some more detail on that later on in today's session. And so during this 60-minute session, we'll cover why data analytics skills are indispensable for career advancement in the current business environment, how data skills more broadly contribute to organizational success, and those with data skills therefore becoming ever more critical to that organizational success, and how for individuals themselves they can capitalize on the data revolution, which we've been witnessing now for some years, but has really continued to accelerate and at the forefront of innovation today. And so I'm absolutely delighted to introduce my panelists for today, people we hope to hear a lot more from across the hour than myself. And so I'm going to ask them to turn their cameras on and introduce themselves in turn, and we'll go in reverse order to what I have on my screen. So Tamara, if you're able to give yourself a brief introduction, please.
Hi, I am Tamara Sweet. I'm the Director of Product Strategy in the newly formed digital division at Honoris United Universities, and we are a pan-African network of private higher education institutions.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Tamara. Charlotte.
Hi, I'm Charlotte. I'm joined from Salt Recruitment, and I look after analytical skill sets in digital marketing, CRO, tagging, implementation, insights, and products. I've been part of Salt for over 2 years now. Before that, I came from Hays, where I looked at the contract market for digital and broader data analytics skill set, all the way from data science, architects to data analysts.
Yeah, wonderful. A fantastic cross-section of insight there. Thank you, Charlotte. Orlando.
Hi, yes, my name is Orlando, and I'm a business manager within the London Technology Division here at Robert Walters. We are a recruitment consultancy. I look after the data analytics space in specific. And prior to that, I've been working at Meta within the talent acquisition team, also focused on the data space.
Fantastic. Thank you, Orlando. Mingjung.
Yes, hi, my name is Mingjung. So I came from Singapore. So I'm currently working as a digital innovation manager. Previously transitioned from auditings, a lot of chartered accountancy, which was my background before the courses. So I managed to land this role somewhere this year. So this is where I started my journey now with a lot of fantastic ideas on digitals and data.
Yeah, fantastic. Always wonderful to be speaking with graduates of our programs where it's helped them on their journey. Thank you for joining us today. And last but not least, Nathan.
Hello everyone, I'm Nathan Shoesmith, based here in Manchester. I'm a research consultant for EcosGen and GC Insight, working on a range of social, economic development and regeneration projects across the UK, and also supporting our colleagues on our growth propensity tool, Growth Flag.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nathan. And so, as you've just heard there, we've got a fantastic cross-section from a number of our panelists who are applying data analytics in various roles within their organization, as well as that real insight from two experts who are recruiting for people with data analytics skills on a daily basis, engaging across sectors and organizations with that insight into what those companies are looking for and what a number of those critical trends are. So really looking forward to hearing more on all of those fronts today and getting those insights for you all. So starting off with a little bit of practicalities. Sorry, so yeah, we'll be here till the end of the hour. We will finish on time. A lot to get through. I will do my best to run that as quickly or as accurately as I can. If you stay to the end, we will highlight some extra benefits and further free workshops that those that stay through to the end will be able to benefit from. We do have a Q&A function. If you submit questions, we will record those questions. We'll get to as many of them at the end of the session as we can, and others we will follow up on either. Reactions and chat and using the chat function, very welcome. Love to see as much engagement as possible, so please don't be shy on that front, and we will send out a summary of this session with the recording and slides afterwards. Email address there if you have any other follow-ups for us post the session. So a little bit of context on why we're talking about data. Now, I'm assuming this is pretty well understood, which is why people are attending today's session. But data is the fuel that runs the fourth industrial revolution, is a quote we like at Fourth Rev, and you may have guessed that our name alludes to the fourth industrial revolution, which is that confluence of human, digital and data, which is advancing the next wave of innovation and economic growth, which our programs and courses and careers are focused on. Now, there's a number of data points out there which highlight the challenge that organizations and individuals have in terms of harnessing the power of data. Over 90% of companies recognize how critical it is for their future success, but 97% facing challenges in using that data effectively. And that's for a number of reasons, but people, skills, capability is a critical part of that picture. 36% of businesses report trusting data to make business decisions is a major challenge. So we have over 90% want to be doing that, probably 100% in reality, but it's very difficult for a large number of them to trust the data they have. And 1 in 2 companies claiming that data doesn't yet have the speed and flexibility they need to satisfy their business demands. So a huge number of different angles you can take as to the need and growing need of data, and our panelists here today, experts in seeing these trends across various companies and industries. And so, Charlotte, would love to start by bringing you in here and asking you to sort of expand on the quote on screen around some of the trends you're seeing with the various companies you're working with in the data space.
Yeah, so at the moment we've actually been moving away from being more technical. It's actually gone to be more insight-led, so that more digital analysts, data analysts, marketing analytics. It's been a lot more of a high demand for that, as the investment and the salaries for data scientists, ML engineers, that side of things has been actually slowing down, just because of the sheer size of salary you've got to represent. The market at the moment is also very much in a bit of a turmoil. So yeah, we're mainly focusing on that analytical piece, which is a little bit more accessible, I think, to people coming straight into the data space.
Yeah, really interesting. So just asking you to expand on that a little bit. So working with people who are coming into data roles or utilizing data in other roles.
I say utilizing data in other roles, but at the same time, the level that we hire at for when it comes to recruitment, you already have that basic level there. Although when it comes to the junior end, we are seeing that SQL, having that understanding there, it's super important to be able to get in that landing that first role. Even if that's not your area that you want to go into, digital analytics, learning Google Analytics is amazing, and that will get you in that first step through the door just by having that understanding of that platform.
Yeah, really, really interesting. Thank you, Charlotte. And so focusing on the sort of second half of the quote on screen and Tamara asking perhaps for your perspective here, and sort of seeing this quote that ensuring data is embedded within a business and that end users are enabled and educated as to how to use that data to drive decisioning. Coming back to your introduction and your role at Honoris University, how does that sort of chime with your experience of the role of data in various parts of the business that you're in?
Absolutely. So I almost see data as kind of the glue that holds the different functions within a business together. And I think I've been in organizations where we grow by acquisition. So we bring on different organizations and they all have their own sort of data architecture. And it's been really interesting. You only really start, behaving like a cohesive organization when you can start integrating all of those pieces of data and between the different functions, to be able to start picking up insights that really can, make impact and drive business growth.
And have you seen that sort of evolve, coming to the fore, more over time, like its prominence? How has that changed for you over sort of the recent years of your career?
Absolutely. I think where it used to be a nice to have, it's now become an essential part of an organization and just really gives an organization that competitive advantage.
Great. Thank you very much. Now, some of the sectors that Charlotte, we were speaking to you in advance of the session, and you highlighted some of these sectors where you're seeing sort of particular high growth in data related roles. I was wondering if there were any of these sectors that you wanted to sort of particularly emphasize that you're seeing a lot of activity in.
There's actually another one that I didn't mention, is also agencies. Agencies is a really good area because they will span across insurance, banking, travel and tourism. But travel and tourism, it's luckily for them, kind of, since the pandemic, they haven't done a massive growth and not employed loads of people. So in that sense, they're not having to do a consolidation period. They've done a steady growth. Whereas when you've looked at other organisations like your FMCGs or Sainsbury's or Tesco's, they had rapid growth in the last few years. Still going through growth, but not at the same rate as they were before. And also that's also led to be having consolidations internally as well. But data has been the most important part, and we've not seen as many redundancies in that area because of that decision making being led by data. It's really helped with keeping them on board, basically, to an extent, because they need that. They need to be able to understand what's going on in the business to make those business decisions.
Yeah, no, so interesting. I mean, I think obviously we know the economic context across many countries, and most right now is quite difficult. But when we talk about sort of future-proofing one and their roles and their career, these are the type of critical skills that organizations know they have to retain and don't want to lose. And so, yeah, we've seen that trend across a number of organizations as well. Orlando, bringing you in here, would love to understand, from your perspective, from a Robert Walters perspective, how you're seeing those trends across the various sectors.
Of course, thank you. I definitely have to agree with Charlotte. So there is a consistent demand of data. It hasn't been as impacted. But one interesting fact that we are seeing, and also on the back of what Tamara said, that now before it was a nice to have, now it's becoming a must. It's that it's not only impacting, if we think about different sectors, we could say data is present in every single one of them. But now it's extrapolating to different areas within businesses, areas that didn't necessarily have to have that exposure to data because they had a specialized data team. Now there are functions like within HR or within operations that they need to have data knowledge, data experience. So it's not only becoming a data analyst, it's how the job environment is changing, and data is becoming more and more important for many different areas and how that is evolving across different roles.
Yeah, really, really interesting. And so how is that manifesting, Orlando? Is that in job descriptions? You know,
Yes.
it's called out how a learner's having to, or sorry, how applicants having to demonstrate those data capabilities to land roles.
Yes, definitely. So just to give you context to put it into perspective, within Walters, we have a technology desk, which is essentially your technology for your data analysts, data scientists, etc., like all across technology. But then we have other desks which are focused on operations. We have legal teams. We have financial services that are completely different, industries or areas within different businesses. And now there is an overlap of data requirements across roles that before did not have these requirements. So now I have to work more closely together with my colleagues in the finance team. Well, finance it's an area that it's historically very data driven. But if we think about other sections like marketing or human resources, like these areas as well, they are now requiring more exposure and more data skills, whether that is in terms of analytics, using analytics tools like your Power BI, Tableau, etc., or just knowing how to manipulate that data that they're using. So yeah, there is a lot more overlap between functions and those requirements, and that's being reflected on job descriptions and job requirements across different areas.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, again, makes a lot of sense. Coming through, Jung, to ask you a question before I come on to Nathan as well. But I know that you've sort of fairly recently changed roles, and wondering what that experience was, in relation to what Orlando and Charlotte have just spoken around the prominence of data in that process and how important it was for you making that transition.
Yeah, definitely. So what sets apart, I think, is definitely a data skills that's required to run. So in my department, for a context, we have about 500 people, but then the team of digital team is only 6 of us that's serving 500 of them. So it speaks volume in terms of what data skills sets us apart. It because sorry. So what gives us a useful technique is because I have a lot of data skills and I have a lot of domain knowledge. That's why I'm able to speak like both languages in terms of the business needs as well as what does the data requirement needs, and I'm able to speak that to the non-technical stakeholders, which most of them are non-technical stakeholders. So that's kind of incorporate into why are data skills getting more and more importance. And then a lot of times what I'm seeing is increasing usage of a lot of dashboards like Power BI, Tableau, even to stakeholders or across other users. So they have actually been a common usage of all these common data skills being more applied throughout for every level, even just visualizations or making some basic analytics, seeing where went wrong, what is the data currently looking at. So that has been, like they mentioned, it's a must-have now in the industries that, and even the fresh grad coming in, they are also a lot equipped with basic data skills as well.
Yeah, really interesting. And so in terms of the role that you were applying for, it was called out as critical prerequisite for that role, and was sort of some of the things that were focused on through that recruitment process.
Yes, it was kind of important because the skill sets, the basic skill sets is what makes you efficient on your work. So on the data skill itself, it just comes as a given now as a basics for before you apply on. coupled with other soft skills and hard skills that you have along the way. So it's kind of the bridge, I would say, to my next role in essence when I transitions. It was there when I speak to my bosses that, okay, I have these skills currently, I would like to try it out. And then it was like, okay, this looks reasonable. And then they're like, okay, you can have a go. And then that's where I landed my role currently.
Yeah, okay, being able to demonstrate the value that you're able to add straight away. Wonderful, and congrats again on the new role. Nathan, really interesting quote from you here around sort of highlighting public and private sectors, and so would love to start with some insight from you around if you're seeing those trends similarly across companies you work with in both sectors, or any differences that you're witnessing there.
Sure, thanks, Jack. I think the opportunities in terms of driving decision making based on data are only increasing, both across private sector. You look at individual businesses, the opportunities that they've got in terms of using data, whether that's for sort of driving efficiency or improving their products and services, but also on a national level, when you look at governments or even local and regional government, supporting people and businesses in what is a challenging economic outlook at the moment. There's lots of opportunities to do that, but there are also challenges as well, which is where that second point of the quote comes from, because although we're increasingly as a society using data, many people don't necessarily have the sort of data skills that have been taught to them in the past. So it's really important that we can get data skills to more people, but also being able to communicate what those data insights mean for people. That's how that decision making will increase effectively. The decision making through data intelligence will probably naturally increase because of the way the world is going. But in order to do that effectively, we need to be able to help make people communicate those insights effectively.
Yeah, really interesting. And so I imagine in your role as a sort of researcher and consulting with various organizations, you're having to do that yourself in the way that you present and communicate data and insights. We're really interested to hear how that's evolved in your role and how you're sort of using data on a day-to-day basis to achieve your goals.
Yeah, it's definitely a big part of the role, and I think it has evolved over recent times. So much of what we do as consultants is sort of writing reports and stuff like that, but I think that's actually changing because different people sort of understand data in different ways. We have to tailor to lots of different audiences. I think one of the key trends recently has been sort of increasing use of graphical means to help people understand that data. Tableau and Power BI have been mentioned. We also do a lot of mapping with QGIS, ArcGIS, other software. And I think really having a broad range of tools at your disposal that you can use to help people understand that underlying data can help make those trends and insights that come up a lot more powerful to people. Ultimately, we want to be able to make people understand as best as possible what the data is showing them. So our methods for doing that have continually evolved, and I'm sure they will do in the future too.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Tamara, your organization is a fascinating company that's spanning, I believe the entire geography of Africa, and correct me if I'm wrong, but with that the sort of diversity of audiences and needs and things that you serve through your digital products, areas that you're responsible for, yes, it must be hugely varied. So yeah, really interested in how that use of data sort of evolved in identifying, engaging, and taking advantage of opportunities with such a broad audience.
Absolutely. So I think while we try to look at some global strategies that we can apply across the network, I think what's been most prominent is being able to take that localized approach. So you can use this kind of span of data to pick up a certain insight, but if we then put that in the local market in Nigeria or in Egypt or in Tunisia, like what does that look like there? So that's really been interesting to balance or find the balance between global and local.
Yeah, really, really interesting. And not easy, I imagine.
No, not at all.
Wonderful. So the focus on data and organizations and technology, like most of these conversations, has to come back to people, with the sort of Data Health Barometer annual survey identifying number one barrier to getting real value from data isn't budget or the available technology. It's again people and the skills and capabilities that they have, and of course again that being the focus for us around how do you develop those capabilities, experience, applied skills in a way that gets people ready to take advantages of these huge opportunities in the world of work. And so that's, as we've already highlighted with the panel here, there's specific data roles or technology roles, but actually, as this quote statistic shows, 82% of decision makers now expect every employee in their departments to have at least basic data literacy. And we're seeing that basic data literacy expectation growing in what those benchmarks are, and actually people's skills and capabilities needing to go beyond that in many, many parts of the business outside of some of those traditional data-driven fields. And only 11% of employees, so now looking at the employees side, are fully confident in their ability to read, analyze, work, and communicate with data. And I think this number is so powerful in how low it is when you think about how much of a day-to-day engagement across departments, within departments, in almost all organizations is based on data being shared in presentations, being fed back to people, and a basic assumption being made that people are interpreting that data in a consistent way, and that therefore inform particular decisions and actions from that. But actually, what we're highlighting here is there is a huge discrepancy in people's confidence around those things, and that can obviously causing massive challenges at an individual level, team levels, and an organizational level. And so, Mingjin, coming back to you again here, we spoke a bit about how sort of data has helped you, transition into the new role, but would love to understand a little bit more around, in as a digital innovation manager. It sounds like a really exciting role, but actually understanding a bit more for the audience around what does that actually involve, and how you're using that data on that day-to-day basis.
Yep, definitely. So I think it's written here, like as a digital manager, I was trying to digitalize a lot of our approach, trying to automate a lot of workflows, processes, and then in a sense, we're also trying to standardize a lot of data inputs, because we have massive of data. So like organizations like PwC, they have multiple MNC clients across the globes, and then we have so much data, but then it wasn't like put through together to do a lot of benchmarking, which we happens to do a lot more currently. So we are trying to automate a lot of it, map the data, build like the data libraries, pull things together, and then we start to do some of this like benchmarking to talk about the industry trends amongst what we see amongst clients, what is missing piece, and then the auditors, which is what we serve as our other teams. So they went out to speak with the clients as well, to talk about to the board of members, like, we see some trends has been happening in industries, but then your company has not moved. So maybe you will want to enhance and strengthen whatever that is in that focus areas, or this has been a trend, ESG has been a trend, whoever has done this much, but then your company is still falling behind the trends. So this is what's going to happen. So these are some of the data that we look at on a day-to-day basis in terms of automating the process, collecting the data, run some analytics, benchmarks, and then just share out some insights so that they can go out and speak to businesses as well.
Yeah. And are you seeing that demand grow sort of both internally and with your clients?
Yes, definitely. It's been growing massive. I think we are thinking of expanding the team as well. So a lot of things is not just us, even between the team itself, like the basic data literacy has been increased. They expect some of the teams to be able to drill some insights themselves. Even before coming to us, they're able to figure out some things. So it's definitely growing significantly. And then nowadays everyone is talking about value adding services. Is no longer just a basic like audit, tax advisories, or consulting. People expect more like a holistic approach when you speak with the board. They're like, okay, what can we do now? What do you see? Okay, how can I get here to there? How can I be the first in the market? So these are some of the conversations that is prompting up, and that's been driving a lot of like data literacy needs enable for us to deliver whatever qualities that's expected of us to deliver in the end.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, really, really interesting to understand that in a bit more depth. Watching the time, we've already got some insight from Nathan and Tamara into how they're utilising data in their roles. But I'm going to skip ahead to this quote from you, Charlotte, which I think is really interesting, as we talk about how data is applied within organizations, within roles, and this sort of quote around no longer is data siloed towards certain functions, it's across every department, and being able to answer those questions being such a great asset. So yeah, just really interested if you can expand on that based on the clients that you're working with.
Yeah, so it's all about having that softer skill as well as that harder skill of understanding analytics. Being able to deliver commercial insights is super valuable. Being able to have that communication skills to address non-technical stakeholders as well as technical stakeholders is becoming increasingly more important, and equally as important as that technical skill set. So that foundation of communication is in parallel to that technical skills that you're going to be starting to develop.
Yeah, okay. Makes a lot of sense. And so yeah, it's been great to get this insight into the various ways that data is being applied within roles and the organizations that we're seeing. And we're looking at switching the focus a bit to people entering into the sector and their pathway into that sector. And Orlando, would love to bring you in here. We spoke a bit about different sectors earlier that are utilizing data with greater frequency and significance, but in terms of sort of the roles and specific roles that you're seeing people recruit for, yeah, we'd be interested in any insights and trends that you can share with us on that front.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. So it's really interesting, actually, because we have seen how these data requirements have evolved very rapidly over the last, 4 or 5 years. Whereas before we saw more roles that were specifically, very data driven. They wanted a data analyst with a technical background that would be able to do all these, technical visualizations, process the data, etc., like very technical roles. That has somehow transitioned into roles where domain expertise it's just as important, even if not more. So that's why we're seeing that demand of upscaling and getting people to acquire these data knowledge, because understanding, for example, the marketing space, the product space, is just as important in order to make sense of the data. So there's large volumes of data that the business have worked into making this digitalization process, building data lakes, but now that they have the data, it's how do we make sense of it? Normally, a data analyst, somebody with a technical background, will be able to communicate, translate requirements with the business, but it's becoming more common that businesses are looking for experts within their area with data skills rather than somebody just specializing on data. So it's kind of like transforming a little bit on how those data requirements, especially on the analytics space, and how that is evolving to an environment where, yes, data skills are definitely a must, but that needs to be that needs to go together with domain expertise.
Yeah, great. Makes a lot of sense, and we see that play out we work with a lot of career changers or career advancers, people that have already developed a lot of skills or experience within a particular domain, and then they're adding those data capabilities to either transition into a new role or make the next step in their role and accelerate that progress that they're looking to make. Charlotte, I know that you recruit, in some specific domains such as marketing, and yeah, interested to understand from your perspective how sort of explicitly those data skills are called out, and whether that's in the role itself, or is it in the job specifications? How are you seeing those trends develop?
So for me, beside the marketing side, it's understanding how to draw data from the business and understand how to interpret it back to the business. That's the main area that we're seeing. It's not necessarily called out in job descriptions explicitly in a certain tech stack or anything like that. But from my side of things, where I look at CRO, so that's conversion rate optimization, we're looking at website data and drawing that from Google Analytics. So with that, it's quite easy to access that and understand it and get to grips with that platform, potentially more so than a coding language, because it's a bit more user friendly. And yeah, that can be very much transferred across most industries. With some industries like banking and insurance, they quite like keeping people from banking and insurance, but across various other industries, especially if you work from an agency background, coming from an agency background is probably a really, really good place to start, just for the fact that you'll experience various other industries like retail, FMCG, gaming, anything like that. You can get that from just being in an agency setting.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Tamara and Nathan, in terms of the recruitment that you do into your teams, into your organizations, yeah, be really interested in again the prominence of data in the skill sets that you're looking for, and is that sort of role dependent? Is it something you're looking across all roles or recent roles that you've recruited for? Any insights there would be really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the one thing that is always very important to me when looking at hiring in my team is curiosity. And for me, that relates directly to kind of data and questioning and making sure that you can think creatively about answering a question for the organization. And that often is done through data. So although I don't particularly look for a certain set of skills related to data, I think it often needs to come through in examples that a candidate can provide and how they've used data to make decisions. So it's often those tangible examples that give me a good idea of kind of their level of data literacy.
Yeah, thank you. And Nathan, if you can add to that.
Yeah, I'd agree with Tamara. Much of what I've seen in our organization, but other organizations as well, sometimes data skills and specific platforms or even programming languages, things like that can be useful. But I think the sort of soft skills that underlie it are really important. The curiosity is a really, really important one that Tamara mentioned. That sort of analytical mindset, which I'm sure we'll touch on a bit more. Those sort of soft skills are really important, and that in some ways helps it be more accessible as well to people that aren't traditionally from a data or sciencey background. It's something that a lot of people can develop.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't agree more. I think we're going to come on to the sort of domain aspect here, which Orlando called out there in his answer, and it coming through from many answers as well. At Fourth Rev, we talk about a skills quadrant in our programs. And so there's the technical skills, which are often prerequisites for certain jobs. But then there's the business skills, often the domain knowledge or the experience of applying those to create genuine business value within an area. And then there's the human or soft skills, which are so critical to engaging with team members, with different stakeholders to, again, translate that into value. And the last being the sort of personal growth skills around, where is it that people are going and how are they going to get there and how are they taking control of their career. But yeah, it's just so interesting hearing everyone pick up on the domain specifically, as well as the soft skills alongside the technical skills being so prominent and important to those career outcomes and success. And so building on that domain knowledge section, Charlotte, going first of all to you here on this quote, and interested around how the different sectors are looking for sort of slightly different skills or experience within the data field.
I'd say they are looking, actually would say they're looking for the same skill set. It's more the softer skill set that they value differently.
Okay.
I'd say that's why I mentioned before about banking and insurance. It's more around the industry you're working in. It stays in that industry. Unfortunately, it's slowly breaking that field. That's something that we're actually working with Amlin. They're currently recruiting with a data scientist position, and historically they've only ever worked with people from banking sectors. And if you do that, you're not getting a broader range of other experience. So it's kind of detrimental in that sense. But I think coming from any background, as long as you've got that data skill set and you can communicate and you can really drive business, you're curious about the business, you want to understand the business, you want to have a passion to change that business with your insights, that's the main thing. And that's the bit that people are looking for at interview processes, is that curiosity, wanting to continuously learn. If there's a skill gap, address that skill gap head on and don't shy away from it. It also focus on what you've got and what you can bring to the table rather than what you haven't got.
And that word curiosity coming up again, which I absolutely love. And so how do you advise your sort of your clients around how they can demonstrate that curiosity and that passion that you're highlighting there, that can be a key to them being successful in the process?
Yeah, I'd say that coming through in your interview process, asking questions around the business, how they're structuring, plans for growth, how they can see this role growing in the future, all of that kind of thing will help employers understand how much your buy-in is, as well as what you want to get out of this business, because it's a two-way street. You're not just coming in to service them, they need to service you. It's that joint effort.
Thank you. And Minjung, you've spoken a bit before around sort of, bridging between the business and data. I would love you to expand on that in relation to this sort of domain knowledge question.
Yeah, so I'm exactly in the field that Charlotte mentioned. I'm in banking and insurance, what we call that usually a financial services industry. So it's very important to have domain knowledge, because they want people to look at experience between banking, some of these risk models, including like insurance, some of these very specific jargons that they speak around all day long. So you don't really get to the table if you don't speak the same language as them, usually when it comes to all these kind of data analytics kind of roles. So it's important, and then that's where I also leverage my strengths of working in financial services, where I landed my roles, because it's a bit rare for people to have this kind of skill sets, and then you speak with it with your domain knowledge. And that's where it's important to build on your strength, because I believe a lot of people nowadays they have their understandings on their work, they have their domain knowledge, and then don't give on that. You can just learn the data skills to top up onto it, and then that might brings to the next level within the field itself.
Yeah, thank you. So Orlando, would love to get your perspective on this as well. Sort of similar question around that sort of balance around the domain knowledge with some of these insights that Charlotte and Minjung have provided there around banking and finance in particular, but across other sectors as well, and how transferable you're seeing candidates.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say the main thing around data, it's complexity. And it depends where you sit. It's going to determine whether your technical skills are more relevant than your domain skills, or whether your domain skills are more relevant than your technical skills. So there is a lot. I mean, data, it's so interesting. But in terms of finding that balance, if we look at roles that sit, let's say, a little bit more on the back end, then yes, technical, its skills are going to be more relevant, and having some exposure to understand where you're going to draw the data from, what type of data you're going to be looking at, that could be relevant and it could be transferable. But there will be some roles where domain knowledge is way more important. Like Min said, understanding the language, understanding the environment, understanding all these, it's just as relevant as being able to translate that into data and how to use the data around that role. So, and coming back to what I mentioned initially on how we are seeing roles that are evolving and are requiring more data skills, that's that kind of like the front side where, for example, you might have a business manager, a business analyst that will need to have some data skills, but their core role will remain within their domain, but that exposure, that data knowledge, it's what's going to bring them pretty much onto this digitalization era, being able to work around data and how businesses are making decisions, which is essentially based on data.
Thank you. And so I think, what I've heard across the panel is there's a great deal of value, for particular roles and many bringing that domain knowledge, which means people transitioning into data or adding data to their existing knowledge can build on that, and that can be a great strength. But also, and looking at some of the questions in the Q&A as well, people without a specific experience background that want to get into data-driven roles. Sort of open question for the panel: do people also see pathways for people without specific experience and opportunities available to them if they want to get into data analytics? And
I'd love to weigh in on that, if that's okay.
Please do.
If you're thinking about joining the data space, by all means. I mean, we are just scratching the tip of the iceberg. Just to give you context, I think it was a Cisco report. We only reached 1 zettabyte. I think it was back in 2016 in terms of data. Since then, it has multiplied, and we're expected to next year reach 175. So that is mind-blowing. So it took humanity up to 2016 to reach that amount of data, and just in a span of 5 years, we have multiplied that by hundreds. So it's never late if you're looking into going into the data space. Obviously, there will be some steps, there will be some fundamentals that you can do in order to take that. And even if you think that you don't have a specific domain knowledge or expertise, there are ways to jump in within the data space and starting a career within the data space, whether that is as a data analyst or any other area. But understand the fundamentals. What kind of language do you need to have exposure to? Like, there is a number of analytical tools that business do require people with experience around a specific analytics tool, and they say, I just want a visualization person, somebody who works with Tableau in detail, and it's going to be looking at data, putting visualizations together, and making sense of data. So that's a role that doesn't necessarily require a lot of technical background or domain experience, but it's a role that you can grow into, and you can begin as a junior BI developer or a junior Tableau developer, and there is a way to transition into that.
Thank you, Orlando. And I think that leads us really nicely into this next section around sort of what some of the key skills are to succeed with data. And I think you're just talking there around data visualization, Tableau being one of the really prominent platforms on that, as well as Microsoft BI, companies that we work with and provide exposure to through the courses that we offer. The two other sort of key call outs on this slide are around storytelling and communications, both falling very much in that sort of softer or human skills quadrants that you don't necessarily traditionally associate with data. And so coming through to these areas, Tamara, I'd love to get your insight onto why they're being emphasized as so significant.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think being able to create a very compelling data visualization is essential when dealing with sort of non-technical stakeholders, especially more senior leaders in the organization that we're wanting to sort of influence. I think the key here, we can get quite enthusiastic as analysts. There's so many options for so many different types of visualizations, and you want to bring your audience kind of along the whole journey with you. But I think it's much more impactful if you can be really clear and concise, choose one or a few key visualizations that really tell, sort of answer the question that you're trying to ask, and then tying that in with your storytelling techniques. So really adding some color around that, making the data relatable, and then providing that sort of very actionable recommendation.
Thank you, for expanding on that for us, Tara. And I think we see it as we've mentioned on the panel earlier, and Charlotte's talking about getting out of those silos and mingling around, bridging between the sort of data parts of the organization and other stakeholders, that communication, that storytelling to actually get the value from the information that's being analyzed and the insights drawn is so critical. Nathan, anything that you'd like to add there from your role and vantage point where you're communicating with a really broad range of stakeholders?
Sure. So yeah, storytelling is a really important part of what we do. I think often people think about data analytics and think about just the data, but don't necessarily think about the analytics bit too much and the sort of storytelling element that has to it. It's essentially translation, really, trying to translate it to people in a language that they understand. And as has been touched upon, there's many different tools to do that.
Yeah, that translation, I love that way of thinking about it, and making sure that yes, it is really understood in the many different languages that large organizations or small have in different departments, and what's relevant and important to them, and helps make the decisions and move things forward. I think that this quote's really interesting around, so nearly 3/4 of decision makers believe employees should improve their own data skills. And sort of what this speaks to for me is who's responsible, or who's taking responsibility for developing these data skills that we're all talking about are so critical. And is it the organization investing in their employees and their teams, or are they looking at the individuals themselves to take it upon themselves to develop and enhance those skills?
Quickly, if that's
Absolutely.
okay.
Please do.
There's actually two sides of this. So at the moment where we're hiring, a lot of the things that candidates are asking for is that continued development. So a lot of our clients are implementing a fund that goes towards it. So I think it's a joint effort. If people would like to build on that skill set, employers are more than happy to pay for that and fund it. So it's very much, it's almost candidate led, but also the business is also looking to influence that. So I think it's a joint effort.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else want to add to that perspective? Really, really interesting. Candidates being able to drive it, but the employees stepping up when being pushed to do so. Orlando, anything to add there?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with Charlotte. And from a business perspective, and having conversations around these with many of our clients, it's way more cost effective, and obviously for talent retention, it's more impactful to upskill your current workforce than having to look for new talent, and definitely more cost effective, more effective towards, maintaining a engaged and a happy workforce. Essentially, that's become more the norm. So yes, clients are I think they're more looking into upscaling their existing workforce rather than looking outside and see, okay, let's bring these externally. So yeah, that's definitely a great point.
We see a real mix across our university partnership programs of individuals investing in themselves and their own growth, as well as organizations or employers sponsoring individuals through programs. And that proactivity to sort of ask the employer to support where possible is often key to unlocking that investment that's there and often needs to be deployed, and budgets that go unspent in sort of training and development because people aren't sort of or the employers aren't, or individuals, finding and locking down those opportunities and commitments. In terms of developing these skills, and we'll get into some specific skills now, just to call out with only a couple of minutes to go, but we've mentioned a few different tools and platforms. I mean, Nathan, anything in particular that you would really like to call out, you think is really critical takeaway for people coming off the session to focus on early in a data career?
Well, you've mentioned the word proactivity there in your last bit, and if you come back to the word curiosity, I think they're the key things for people to take away and sort of look at. There's lots of different tools out there. I think some good ones to look at are sort of Power BI, Google Data Studio, and some of the mapping tools, QGIS and stuff like that are really easy to go and have a look at, have a play around with them and just see what you can create with them. I think in many ways, that's the best way to learn these different tools, is just by trying. It takes a while sometimes, but it can actually be a really enjoyable process as well. So just go and have a look, see what's out there and see what you can do.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice, Nathan. I'm watching the clock here, and I think that brings together a few different sort of final thoughts that we can share, and sharing some key tools here which are really important, but also this sort of data ready mindset, which people have spoken about, this curiosity, this desire to learn, this learn by doing, all of these things which I think mean that people can bring to interview processes, things that demonstrate that genuine interest in the role, in the sector, as well as the experience and developing the capabilities that they can demonstrate in the process and hit the ground running with. And this data ready mindset is something that you all came back to as being so powerful and valuable. And I'm sorry, on the time front, we haven't got the opportunity to go into any more depth on it. And so curiosity, data ready mindset, these being really key takeaways I think that we're coming through. And so sorry, we're coming up with 2 minutes to go. I did promise that we would make some call outs at the end around for benefits that people who stayed all the way to the end of the session can take advantage of. So just calling out first of all that we're bringing this to you from the London School of Economics and 4th Rev, our data analytics career accelerator, which is a 6-month program built with industry, focused on project-based learning that leads directly into high growth careers with industry partners and others that look to recruit from our programs, developing the number of the critical skills, tools, experience across business, technical, soft and human growth that we've mentioned on today's session. We'll send through this slide deck, which will include some more information on that program. And we've got my colleague Daniel Cairns, who will be staying on this call for sort of 10 minutes at the end here for anyone who has further questions specifically related to the Career Accelerator. Daniel heading up our enrollments at 4th Rev, and so great man to provide that insight. Again, in the pack, you'll see some small case studies of learners that have been through the program, such as Minjung here with us today, and that leading to successful career outcomes. Some of those benefits for those of you that have stayed with us all the way here. So one, the first 20 people that register for the program by September 30th from this webinar will get a free signed copy from Dr. James Abday of his latest book, and Dr. James Abday being the LSE professor that is the leader on the program with us here in the Data Analytics Career Accelerator, and his latest book around modeling and predictive analytics, which are some of the skills and capabilities that you would develop. And then we also have a free data skills masterclass around how to position the data skills that you have to secure your next role. And that's going to be hosted by Kate McDermott from our friends at SALT, one of Charlotte's colleagues here. And it's another 60-minute session exclusive to webinar registrants and able to have a real direct masterclass with another recruitment expert there. So details to follow and be sent out to everyone who has stayed through to the end of the session. So we are at the hour there. I think I said thank you very much now to all of our panelists. Sorry we haven't had the opportunity to answer more questions that came through on the Q&A. Time always a challenge, but some really amazing insights across the board there. So thank you all very much for your time, and thank you to everyone else for attending.